The containment facility hummed with sterile efficiency, but in Section 7, two juvenile Crethaxians sat motionless before untouched feeding troughs. Dr. Cannett's four manipulator appendages trembled as he reviewed the biometric data for the third time that cycle. "They're dying," he whispered, his translator rendering the words flat and emotionless despite the distress rippling through his sensory membranes. The cubs, if one could call apex predators cubs, even in infancy, had been orphaned when their colony ship malfunctioned near human-controlled space. At 8 months old, they stood nearly 2 meters tall, covered in obsidian scales that could deflect plasma rounds. Their eyes, twin voids of calculated predation, tracked every movement in the lab. Every movement except toward their food. Cannett had tried everything: temperature adjustments, pheromone therapy, even live prey, though the ethical board had nearly terminated his research for that transgression. Nothing worked. The cubs simply sat, growing weaker, their magnificent bodies consuming themselves from within. "Perhaps we should consider euthanasia," suggested Dr. Vexton, his concern genuine despite the coldness of his species. "It would be merciful." Before Cannett could respond, the laboratory doors hissed open. A human walked in, young, female, wearing the informal attire that Earth's people somehow deemed acceptable in professional settings. Her identification badge read, "Bella Chen, Xenobiological Consultant." "You must be Dr. Cannett," she said, extending her hand in that peculiar human gesture of greeting. Her smile reached her eyes, something Cannett had learned to recognize after years working alongside humans. "Command sent me. Heard you're having trouble with some kids." "They are not children," Cannett corrected, his translator emphasizing each word. "They are Crethaxians, predators, designed by evolution itself to hunt in family units." Bella interrupted, already walking toward the containment field. "I've read the literature. Pack dynamics, hierarchical feeding structures, complex social bonding, yeah, I know." She stopped at the transparent barrier, and for the first time in 17 cycles, the cubs moved. Their heads lifted simultaneously, tracking this new presence with an intensity that made every scientist in the room step back, every scientist except Bella. "They're scared," she said softly. "Impossible." Cannett's membranes flushed with contradiction. "Fear is prey behavior. Crethaxians are babies," Bella finished. "They're babies who watched their parents die. Babies taken from everything they knew and dropped in a sterile box with people who smell like fear and desperation." She turned to Cannett, and her expression carried something his species had no equivalent for: a blend of determination, compassion, and that uniquely human quality of stubborn optimism. "I'm going in," she announced. The laboratory erupted in protests. 17 different species, in 17 different languages, all screaming variations of the same word: suicide. Humans might be the galaxy's newest members, might have proven themselves shockingly resilient and adaptable, but this was madness. Crethaxians had evolved on a death world that made Earth look like a vacation resort. They could tear through reinforced durasteel. They could. Bella was already cycling through the airlock. Cannett watched, frozen between horror and fascination, as the human stepped into the containment cell. The cub's head swiveled, tracking her movement with predatory precision. In the observation room, someone activated the emergency neutralization system. One wrong move, one sign of aggression, and sleeping gas would flood the chamber. Bella sat down, not cautiously, not slowly. She simply folded her legs beneath her and sat on the cold floor 2 meters from the cubs, completely vulnerable. Then she did something that made Cannett's primary brain misfire. She looked away from them, deliberately, submissively. "It's okay," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know you're hungry. I know everything's scary and different." She pulled something from her pocket, emergency rations, Cannett realized, and took a bite. "But you have to eat. Your parents would want you to be strong." The larger cub, the male, rose to his feet. Every alarm in the facility screamed. Emergency teams mobilized. Kanat found himself pressing against the observation window, unable to look away. The cub approached Bella, each step deliberate, each movement calculated. He lowered his massive head until his breath, hot enough to fog in the climate-controlled air, washed over her face. His jaws, capable of crushing starship hull plating, opened slightly. Bella didn't move, didn't flinch. She simply sat there, maintaining that submissive posture, showing this orphaned predator that she was neither threat nor prey. She was something else entirely, something the galaxy was still learning to understand, something like family. The cub made a sound, not the killing scream Crethaxians were famous for, but something softer, almost plaintive. Then he turned and walked to his feeding trough. His sister followed. Together, for the first time in 17 cycles, the cubs began to eat. Bella stayed with them through the entire meal, 43 minutes of sitting cross-legged on the floor while two of the galaxy's most dangerous predators ate their fill. Only when they finished, when they'd curled up together in their rest area, did she stand and walk back to the airlock. The observation room remained absolutely silent as she emerged. "How?" Kanat finally managed. "How did you know?" Bella shrugged, that peculiarly human gesture that could mean everything or nothing. "Dogs," she said simply. "Back on Earth, when you're trying to socialize a scared dog, you don't stare at it. You don't crowd it, you just exist nearby, be calm, be patient, be pack." "But they're not dogs," Dr. Vexthon protested. "They're mammals," Bella interrupted. "Warm-blooded, pack-bonding mammals who just lost their parents. Yeah, they're also apex predators who could probably eat me in 3 bites. But they're still just scared kids who needed someone to sit with them." She smiled again, that expression that seemed to contain both infinite courage and infinite foolishness. That's what humans do. We sit with the scared ones. Over the following weeks, Bella returned daily. She sat with the cubs during every meal, slowly building trust, slowly teaching them that this strange new world held more than just sterile cages and fearful scientists. Under her care, they thrived, grew stronger, became, in their way, family. Kanat watched it all, documenting everything for the xenobiological databases, trying to quantify the unquantifiable. How did humans do this? How did they walk into danger with such casual confidence? How did they bond with species that should have been incompatible? The answer, he eventually realized, wasn't in the data. It was in that simple act of sitting down, of making yourself vulnerable, of extending trust to the untrusted. It was humanity's greatest strength, and perhaps their most inexplicable trait. They didn't just survive in the galaxy. They didn't just adapt. They sat with the scared ones, whatever those scared ones might be. And somehow, impossibly, that changed everything. The galaxy would never be the same. And perhaps, Kanat thought, as he watched Bella laugh while a 2-ton predator cub playfully nudged her shoulder, that was exactly what they all needed.